The Prime Minister of Hungary is warning that Europe is facing an economic disaster, and one writer says that it is unclear if anyone is paying attention. Writing last week in Compact magazine, Sohrab Ahmari says in part, quote, if the United States were a serious power, it would pay heed to the warnings. Instead, Team Biden has dispatched a same-sex married liberal activist as its envoy to Budapest in an apparent attempt to tweak the Hungarians' conservative sensibilities. And we go now to that author of that piece, Sohrab Ahmari, founder and editor of Compact magazine and a visiting fellow at Franciscan University of Steubenville. Sohrab, great to have you on. Thanks for taking the time. So what exactly is the Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban? What is he warning to Europe about a possible economic disaster?
Well, thanks for having me, Tracy. Yeah, I was able to spend actually just last weekend in a small village called Kutya, where the ruling party, Fidesz, holds an annual picnic. It's mostly off the record, but I got an opportunity to sit down with the Prime Minister for a few minutes. And the messaging, both in the interview and from the party more broadly, is that, frankly, Europe is at risk of, freezing to death when it comes to low-income people, right? Because energy costs are becoming prohibitively expensive as winter approaches, and of kind of deindustrializing. Across Europe, you have German industry, Swedish industry, they're just shutting down because energy is too expensive. There are fuel lines developing in places like Poland, which last remembered fuel lines from Soviet era kind of calamities. And just in general, that potentially risks the joblessness of millions and millions of people.
Yeah, and I know that your article indicates that President Joe Biden and the United States really aren't doing much to avert the possible disaster. Talk to us more about that.
Well, it wouldn't take much. It would take too long, for example, to set up new natural gas terminals so that the U.S. can supply more of Europe's energy needs. I think we should do that. But for now, all it would take is to re-examine the sanctions. The sense that I got in these Hungarian officials is that they understand, for example, weapons transfers to Ukraine to allow the Ukrainians to defend themselves. That's one thing. But to continually push Europe to adopt sanctions, that doesn't help anything if the ruble, the Russian currency, is actually reaching historic highs. And the Russians can make just as much, if not more money than before, by selling their energy supplies to China, which then sells them back to Europe at a markup. That doesn't help anyone. Or just because they can sell less energy, but at a higher price because there's this artificial scarcity created by sanctions. None of that hurts Russia. All it does is hurt Europe's economy, which means ultimately it hurts Americans because Europe is our major ally.
So before I let you go, I'm going to switch gears here and talk about something else. I know that you're also following the situation for Christians in Armenia. Can you tell us more about the conflict there, and also why you give credit to Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi for her helping out?
Azerbaijanis have become so emboldened that last week they launched an attack into Armenia proper. It's one thing for them to have tried to take back this enclave called Nagorno-Karabakh, which is technically part of Azerbaijan's recognized borders. But now they're attacking Armenia's real borders, which suggests to the Armenians, and I agree, that the Turks want to do what they've always wanted, which is to have this kind of ethnically contiguous territory. And they see the presence of these Christians as a hindrance to that. And 100 years ago, that led to the Armenian genocide, the first modern genocide. And now that, this sort of aggression, sends chills down the spines of Armenians and their friends. So it was wonderful for Speaker Pelosi to visit and express the American people's solidarity with the Armenian people as they face this unjust assault. And hopefully that'll spur executive branch action as well. The U.S. has been far too soft on Azerbaijan, which is one of these like president for life countries, very, very corrupt. Even by post-Soviet standards, it's incredibly corrupt. And so, justice demands that America become a more fair and even-handed actor between these two, and especially to have some care for the preservation and safety of one of the kind of truly indigenous Christian communities. Armenia was the first nation ever to embrace Christianity as a nation. Even before the Emperor Constantine converted, the Armenians became a Christian nation, and that has to mean something for Americans.
Indeed. Sohrab, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us and touching on these very important issues. We appreciate it.